Hi Stampers, this is Sarah Naber with Sarah Loves to Stamp, and today I'm bringing you this cute snowman shaker card. It has a little window here and some mica flakes inside so that when you shake it, it looks like it's snowing on the snowman. Pretty fun. So today we're going to be making that one. The first thing I started with was a crumb cake card base, and it is 4 1/4 by 11 on the edge, and then I scored it at 5 1/2. So it's just a half piece of your regular cardstock of 8 1/2 by 11, and it's just scored in the middle. Okay, so that's the first part. Now the next part is measuring 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and I ran that through my Big Shot with the Textured Impressions embossing folder, and this is the Snowburst one. I love these embossing folders, and this one is in the Holiday Mini Catalog. What I did was to make the design, it looked more like this before, obviously this is the back so it's indented instead of raised up, but it looked more like this, and I wanted it to really just pop off the card front. And so what I did is I just used a sponge dauber. These are really fun. They just fit on your finger. And I just dipped it a little bit, just kind of pounced it on top of the craft Stampin' pad in Whisper White, and just went over it just to pop that design up and to make it look more snowy. And then I went around the edges as well and just applied a little extra white to really, again, make sure that it really popped off the card front. That's going to give you more dimension than even it gave you before as a textured folder. So I love that. And we're going to set it aside to dry because that is craft ink, and craft ink is a pigment ink, so it's great for heat embossing and for stamping just straight on cardstock as well, but you do have to let it dry a little while longer or use a heat gun. Since I don't want to use a heat gun today, I'm just going to set it aside since I did it right at the beginning, and we should be good to go. The next thing I'm going to do is just the main image. It's this cute little snowman guy from the Tags Till Christmas stamp set, which is here. You can see him right here, and you can also see that there's a to from in there. My stamp did not come with this hole in it, as you may have guessed. I'll show you the back. What happened is I actually used a craft knife. I'll show you what a craft knife looks like if you're like, what? So here's a craft knife. I just used it really gently and just cut around it. And just took some very small strokes, and I didn't try to cut through all the layers at once. I just cut through just a little bit at a time and cut very carefully, and it came out really nicely. And the nice thing about it, it makes your stamp more versatile because I can take that little piece and push it back in here and use it as that to from stamp that it looks like on here. So it just makes your stamps more versatile. You can't do that with the wood mount, unfortunately. This is the clear mount, and it's one of my favorite features about them, although I love both. So I'll go ahead and show you how I did the main image. You could just stamp this in the Pool Party Classic ink, but I wanted it to have a little more pizzazz, if you will. So I wanted to make sure his nose looked like a carrot, and then I wanted to make sure his buttons and eyes and mouth looked like coal. So I just went ahead and inked it up in Pool Party, and then I used my blender pen, which is just a clear, see, you can't even see anything, it's clear. And so I'm just going to use it to remove his nose. Now you could also use it on the eyes and mouth and buttons, but since I'm using black on those, it's not really necessary because black is much darker than Pool Party. And then I'm going to use my Stampin' Right marker in More Mustard, and I'm going to use the fine tip end. There's a brush end at the other end. I'm going to use it because it's such a small area to just apply a little more mustard to his nose, his carrot nose. And then I'm going to use the black Stampin' Right marker, and I'm going to go ahead again and use the small one and color in his eyes and his mouth and again those buttons. And then I'm going to breathe on the stamp, and you literally just open your mouth and breathe on it. It's going to re-moisten the ink that may have kind of dried because it was a while ago that I stamped the Pool Party since I've been talking to you guys. And then you just press down firmly. You're going to have a cute little image that has that colored nose and the black eyes like I mentioned. So then what I did, and you could leave it like this, but what I did is I went ahead and colored in the scarf with the Cherry Cobbler Stampin' Right marker and colored in the hat with the basic gray Stampin' Right marker, and those are right here. I went ahead and did that off camera because it took me a little while and I had to lean over it because I'm very picky. And so here's that. And then what I did is I took one of our shaker frames, which also debuted in our Holiday Mini Catalog, and you can see here you get several of them. You actually get 6. And then there's a center circle that you could use just as regular dimensionals if you want. But it's just like our dimensionals, only in a circle shape. And the thing I love about them is that they're matching our punch sizes already. Now I did notice it was a little hard because they're all adhesive to get them apart, so I just took, again, that craft knife, I love my craft knife, and I just went around the inside and outside of the circle I wanted to use before pulling it off. So that worked out great. And then I stuck it on, this is my, oh, that's the back of, see, I made a mess up, so you can reuse your paper. And I just stuck it on the front of that image, so you can kind of see the dimension here. And then make sure you leave the top layer, this is very important, make sure you leave that safety layer on there. And the reason you want to do that is because when you want to go to put in your Mica Flakes, these are the Mica Flakes, you get a ton of them. Look at this jar, it's huge. It's like the size of my hand. And so you get a ton of these Mica Flakes. They're super fun. They'd be great for any holiday little villages you have set up around your house or anything else. I mean, just think of different ideas. And you want to just put a pinch or so in there. Don't put in too many. Oh, I might have put in a few too many, but I love these. So I just wanted to make sure it kind of covered that bottom part where the snow would be. And then I just shut that back up. Now, the reason I didn't peel that off before is that I didn't want Mica Flakes to get stuck to the adhesive. So I'm going to go ahead and peel this off. And then I have a clear circle that I cut from our window sheets. And I did that using the 1 3/4 inch circle punch. And also the image was punched out with that as well. And I'm just going to stick that on the top so that makes a seal between it so our Mica Flakes can't escape. And so there's that. And I did punch out the image that I did before. I just centered it in the punch like this, backwards. Okay, and punched it out. But okay, so here's that. Now I want to make the little red frame to go around it because you don't want everybody to see all that adhesive. So what I did with that is I took a scrap of cherry cobbler cardstock. This is one of my favorites. This project is all about my favorites because I used Pool Party, which is my favorite in color, and I'm using cherry cobbler, which is my favorite regular color. So, and I love, and crumb cake is my favorite neutral, so it works out well. I did the 1 3/8 punch there because I don't want it to be big enough. I don't want to use the 1 3/4 because then you would see that adhesive because that circle is 1 3/4. And then I'm going to use the 2 3/8 scallop circle punch, and I'm going to punch it out. When you do this type of framing technique, you want to make sure you punch out the smaller one first so that you can look and center it. So I think that's about centered. I went ahead and pushed, and there it is. Okay, so that's what I did there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple fun things to this really quick. This is the color catcher box. It's probably taking up my whole screen. You can probably see how sparkly it is down in here. And then I'm going to take, I've made a little mixture out of white frost, shimmer paint, and alcohol. And if you want to see how I did that, please feel free to sign up for my mailing list on my blog, and you'll get a free tutorial with how I do that. And then I'm just going to spritz it. And because I used rubbing alcohol, it's going to evaporate all the moisture really quickly, just leaving that beautiful shimmer behind. And then I'm just going to poke a little hole in each of the scallops, just real quickly. Nothing too fancy, it just gives it a little bit more pizzazz on the project. I actually originally, I believe, made this project with just plain cherry cobbler and no piercing, and it just felt like it needed a little something extra. So feel free, if you're mass producing this card for Christmas cards or anything else, to take a few steps out to make this card easier for you to use for friends and family if you're making several of them. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my Tombow Mono Multi Glue. I love this. It is in our Stampin' catalog. It's one of my favorite adhesives right now. I feel like I use it all the time. I have several bottles, so thank goodness. And then I just put a little ring around it in the circle part. And you want to make sure not to get too much, because if you get too much, it's going to squish out over where your frame is. And then people are going to see your adhesive on the front of that beautiful frame, and it's going to not make your image not look quite as good. So I just went ahead and stuck that on front of here. And then he's done. And now I'm going to go ahead and take my decorative label punch. Let me show you the card again. Oops. I think I just knocked off my Tombow Mono Multi. And I went ahead and punched this out of Pool Party ahead of time. Like I said, Pool Party is one of our in colors, and it is my favorite in color. It just debuted this year, so it'll be around for 2 years, which is really nice. I'm glad they did that for us. So I'm going to just cut this label in half, and then I'm going to use the 2 pieces to make it look like my label is much longer. And I'm going to use that Tombow Mono Multi again. And so I'm going to go ahead and also adhere this part to my project. My Tombow Mono Multi again. Now, I do use snail quite a bit, but when you're talking about a textured piece and adding a textured piece to your project, or adding something on top of a textured piece, you want to make sure you use a liquid glue. It just gets in those little crevices better and makes it stick a lot better than snail does. So I love snail, but for this type of thing, it's not quite as good. And then the other thing I love about mono multi-glue is that you can kind of move your thing around a little bit, your piece, whatever piece you're adhering, because it is a liquid glue, so you have a little bit of playtime before it sticks. And I tell you what, once that Tombow Mono Multi sticks, it is stuck. Ooh, I almost had that problem, didn't I? Okay, so there it is. It always takes me a little bit to get something centered, but okay. And then I'm going to put a little more Tombow Mono Multi, you're seeing a pattern here, on the back of this piece. Okay, so now I have adhesive on the back of this part, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to my project. The front of my little card here. I'm just trying to, again, get it centered. I'm always doing that, it seems like. And then I already pre-stamped my greeting. It is from the set Teeny Tiny Wishes, which is one of my favorite sentiment sets because it has every holiday. It has 24 different stamps. I believe it only comes in the wood mount still, but actually this one I like better in wood mount because there's so many little sentiments. I make sure I don't get anything lost because it has all the blocks. So I love this one. It covers every holiday you could probably ever need. And so I also like it because it fits inside the word window punch, which is what I punched out the white part with. And it also fits inside the modern label, which I punched out the pool party with. So I stamped Merry Christmas with Cherry Cobbler ink on Whisper White cardstock, and I punched it out with the word window. And notice I did not center it. I put it farther to this side because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off this part here at the end. And I just cut it as close to straight as I could get it. And then I wanted to put a little brad here, so I also moved it over so it wasn't centered on the modern label punch either. I'm going to put another mono multi. Again, you can see on the back here that this was a scrap from another project. And so I love to reuse anything I can. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere it, making sure I get the sentiment all the way to the edge of the card here. I'm just going to hold it down for a second there on the edge because it wasn't sticking super great. Okay, and then I'm going to add my brads. So I'm going to do those again with that same piercing tool and the matte pack that I used earlier. And I'm going to do it just to the inside, or just to the front of the card. So make sure you open up your card or your holes will go all the way through. And I want to add one to each of the ends of the decorative label punch. There's that one. And then I want to add one down here to the end of the modern label punch as well. So I love these mini brads. They're so cute. They're great value because you get a ton of them. I think you get 100? No, 200. Oh my goodness. You get 200 in one package, so they'll last you for a very long time, even if you use 3 on a Christmas card. So I really like them. They're great size because they have enough little oomph that they, you know, actually have some visual impact on the front of a card, but not so much that you know, it's too much if you use several of them. So I really like these little guys. They're really cute. So here's our last one. And you can see I put it in the front and then hold it with my finger on the back, and then I'm just pressing the back open to make it hold. And then our last part, and this card is done. Our last part is ribbon. Seems like everybody always has problems tying ribbon, so I'll do a separate video if you need to see that, but I know this one's already quite long. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie my ribbon. I always put it through the left side of the card, or the opening, and then I tie it straight off the roll just to save ribbon. It just lasts you longer that way, and you don't waste. Here I'm just going to need to trim off one end, not both, so I really like that. And then the important part, hold with the right and pull more with the left than the right. And that's what makes it have the knot on top here as opposed to on the back. And then I'm just going to trim off my ends. These are the best scissors ever. They're great for fabric and for ribbon as well, of course. So you can see I cut off just this end, and that's on the roll, and then this is all I wasted. Whereas if you did it on the other end, you'd have to waste more. So that's our card for today. I hope you loved it, and I hope you can try one of these shaker cards soon. They're not just for Christmas, they're for any fun holiday that you can think of. And I know little kids would enjoy getting them for any type of card, especially I'm sure for their birthday cards. So go ahead and try them today. Our shaker frames make it super easy, so I encourage you to, get on my online store and get some shaker frames so you can make shaker cards today. Thanks. Have a good day.